The WYMT TV Community Trust Bank Winter Weather Outlook.
Hello friends, welcome to the 2022-2023 Winter Weather Outlook here on WYMT. I'm forecaster Brandon Robinson.
And I'm meteorologist Evan Hatter.
For the next 30 minutes, we're going to talk all about winter weather, looking at the past and looking toward the future. And we have a lot to talk about in the next half hour.
Two of the things we're also going to discuss are some of the biggest events from last winter and some mountain folklore that's been the talk of the town for the last few months.
That's exactly right. But first up, how did we do with our forecasts last year? Let's take a look.
As we get closer to the winter season, you guys at home may start to see different winter weather advisories, watches, and warnings come out for your area. But what do those actually mean? We'll start with a winter storm watch. That comes out about 2 days before the storm is expected to roll through the mountains. Now, the storm is possible, and we could see about 4 inches over the span of 12 hours. The next would be a winter weather advisory a little bit closer to the winter weather event, about 24 hours before, and the event is approaching our area. Now, the winter amount is about 1 to 4 inches over the span of 12 hours. Next, we have a winter storm warning, also about 24 hours before the event arrives. It's approaching the mountains, and we could see upwards of 4 or more inches over the span of 12 hours. Now that we discussed those different winter weather alerts, let's jump back to last year and see how we compared in terms of those temperatures. Now, for the month of December, we should be around 39 to 40 degrees. We were slightly below that, around 39 degrees. Jumping up to January, we were about 2 degrees above where we should be for this time of the year. And jumping over to February, well below average, we should be in the upper 30s to lower 40s. But last year, we were in those middle 30s. Now, jumping over to precip, we were above average for December, should be around 4.5 inches, got upwards of 5 inches for the month of December. Jumping over to January, just below average, should be in around 3.61 inches, actually around 3.5 inches for the month of January. And check out February, almost double what we should be for this time of the year, jumping up to over 8 inches as we got towards the month of February. Now, jumping over to snowfall, we should be around 4 inches for the month of December, above average in 2021, got upwards of 9.6 inches of snow for the month of December. Over to January, actually below average for the month of January, should be around 7 inches, got upwards of around 6.5 inches for the month of January. As we jump it over to February, we were well above average once again for the month of February, almost 1 foot of snow as we got towards the month of February. Now let's jump over to Evan. He's got a latest look on NOAA's winter weather outlook.
Thanks, Cameron. Now let's look at the forecast as issued by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, and their Climate Prediction Center, where they issue forecasts for 3-month periods, including for the meteorological winter season, which runs from December, January, and February. Now, much of the eastern third of the nation forecast to be warmer than normal. Around here, that translates to a 40 to 50% chance of warmer than normal average temperatures as we head for the next 3 months. North of that, 33 to 40% chances. South of that along the Gulf Coast, an even higher chance, 50 to 60% chance to see warmer than normal temperatures over the next 3 months. Looking at precipitation, things get a little wet as we watch our precipitation outlook. 40 to 50% chance of above normal precipitation values as we head over the next 3 months, going from the Great Lakes down through the Ohio Valley. South of that, 33 to 40% chance. And then south of that, as you get into the deep south, an equal chance of above normal or below normal precipitation over the next 3 months. Now, why is that? Well, we're in a La Nina pattern. You see that from last year's chart. Now, what is La Nina? Well, it's an upwelling of cold water along the western South American coast that has implications not just for the weather in the Pacific, but really weather around the world as well. And we are not excluded from that. Now, this was the La Nina setup last year. We saw the subtropical jet and the polar jet both make landfall, as it were, across the northwest Pacific coast. Now, those came together as you went across the Mississippi Valley. Now, what we ended up seeing was the wet combined with the cold, because we saw plenty of snow, plenty of ice as we went into portions of February as well. We kept that warm at bay. Now, for this year, the pattern looks remarkably similar. We're still in that La Nina pattern, which means we're expecting to see wetter than normal conditions as we head over the next 3 months. The question then becomes, do we get more influence of the warm weather from the subtropical jet, or do we get more influence of cold weather from the polar jet? Well, Brandon's got the latest on what we expect to see as we head into this winter season.
Thanks, Evan. Now we get into the meat and potatoes of this year's forecast, what we expect for the next 3 months. Let's take a look. You'll see the word average a lot on this graphic. Average temperatures for December, above average temperatures for January, and average temperatures again for February. For rain, same thing. Average for December and January, but above average again for February, like we had last year when we had that historic flooding in parts of the region there in late February, early March. And for snow, you guessed it, for December and January, we're going below average. But for February, we're going to go back to average this year instead of the below average like we did last year. All right, now the graphic you have all been waiting for. First flake to last flake, the snowfall outlook for 2021-2022. The biggest part of the region there, possibly seeing between 6 and 12 inches. That's up a little bit from last year. Had a little bit more confidence based on the same pattern, that La Nina pattern, to take those totals up just a little bit. That's the counties there in the blue, which is most of our area. A general 15 to 20 plus inches there in the higher elevations. They always get more, so that's to be expected. As we head into the I-75, Lake Cumberland and the Cumberland Valley corridor, a general 4 to 8 inches are possible as we head through the meteorological winter season. Well, there it is. Evan, what's your take? What do you think?
I do think, considering what we saw last year with the higher snowfall totals, it all depends, of course, when we get that big system. Of course, last year, one of the big systems on Christmas Eve. Still a little far out to see what we're going to see this Christmas, but I do think it'll be interesting to see where the battle zone sets up, where that jet stream is. If it's a little further north, I think we could see some slightly warmer conditions, see a little bit more rain. If it's a little further south, kind of like what we saw last year, we could see more snowfall, more sleet and ice events like we saw last year. So it'll be interesting to see, and especially where that moves during the season as well. Because typically we get that jet stream moving a little further north as we head into the end of February, and that's where we get those big rainfall events. So that'll be what's interesting to me to see just where the jet stream sets up.
I think that's going to be a problem for us again this year if we had to make a bold prediction that we have that severe flooding again at the end of February. It's been, I think, almost 5 years in a row now, so I'd say that's going to be another factor there too. So we're going to keep an eye on things, keep you posted as winter progresses, and we will keep you in the know as we get in the know. That's going to do it for the 2021-2022 Winter Weather Outlook Special. We appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Well, Brandon, there you have it. That was our forecast. Now, did it pan out? The answer is a little complicated.
We did pretty well with temperatures. We expected them to be above average all 3 months. That panned out in December and February, and we were close in January.
Now, rain was a complete bust in December and January. We forecast for average, and it was well above. We did get it right in February, though.
And for snow, we went below average for all 3 months. That panned out in December and February, but it was more than double the average in the month of January.
So coming up, we break down all of the winter weather folklore and what it could mean for our region this coming season.
Welcome back. As we head toward the winter season, the talk of the town across the mountains, folklore, Evan.
And that's right, Brandon, and not just here in the mountains. Folklore has always been a popular topic throughout the Commonwealth, and we basically look and see what does nature tell us about the upcoming winter. And well, we've seen some mixed signs so far.
Exactly. Let's start with the woolly worms. That's always the most popular topic, and these are not current pictures. We haven't seen any. We've had some reports of some of them being more black than brown, and you see there, if they're more black than brown, typically that's a harsher winter. So we'll have to kind of wait and see if that pans out. And on the opposite side, if they are more brown than black, usually a milder winter, and you can kind of see those on those examples. That kind of shows you the different types of coloring there and how that works out.
Now see, Brandon, I have seen one woolly worm so far this year right outside my door, and it was all black.
Oh,
so
there you go.
Yeah, we're going to have to keep an eye on that. And of course, another popular piece of folklore is the amount of days with fog in August means that's how many snows you'll see during the winter. And well, we had a lot of fog in August, Brandon.
Let's hope that's not true this year.
Exactly. We had 22 days with fog in the month of August at the Weather Service office in Jackson, so that would equal 22 snows. Now, notice much of the folklore doesn't tell you how much snow. For instance, we've already seen a little dusting here and there, so perhaps we've already cut into that number a little bit, Brandon.
Exactly. And the next one, of course, is the persimmon seeds. You've got the fork, which usually is a mild winter, the knife, which is basically bitter cold air that cuts right through you, and the spoon is lots of snow. That's just examples, courtesy of the Farmer's Almanac. Now, on the actual ones we've seen so far from our weather spotter Samantha Teague over in McKee. Spoons, Evan, it looks like to me there, so we're going to continue to see how that pans out as well.
That's right. Get ready for the elbow grease to start shoveling that snow. And there are plenty of other old sayings, like perhaps the height of stinging insect nests, the higher they are, the worse the winter looks to be, plus any number of other metrics like the thickness of coats on livestock. The thicker it is, the colder it's supposed to be. And even a green Christmas means a white Easter or vice versa. It's just folklore. It's not always the case.
Exactly. So we'll keep a close eye, but up next we look back at some of the biggest weather events from last year, including a rare severe weather outbreak in December that left parts of our state picking up the pieces.
Welcome back. While we had our fair share of winter woes last year, the top event on our big events list was a rare December severe weather outbreak out west.
That's right, Cameron. On the night of Friday, December 10th into the early morning hours of Saturday, December 11th, two powerful tornadoes tore through parts of western and south central Kentucky. The first storm, an EF4, tore through several heavily populated areas, including Mayfield and Dawson Springs. The second, an EF3, roared through Bowling Green, narrowly missing our sister station there. 57 people died in western Kentucky, 24 of those alone in Mayfield and Graves County. Billions of dollars of damage was reported. That same line of storms came right up to our doorstep here in eastern Kentucky, but fell apart without causing any major issues here at home.
And speaking of unusual, December ended up being the second warmest on record at the National Weather Service office in Jackson and at the London Corbin Airport. Jackson ended up with an average daily temperature that was 12 degrees above normal, while London averaged out about 10 degrees warmer than average.
We rang in 2022 with a bang as a stalled out front brought heavy rain to the region on New Year's Day. Between 4 and 8 a.m., several inches of rain fell in a line from Rockcastle County through Pike County. The front shifted later into the day, sending temperatures soaring into the 60s and 70s, which helped fire thunderstorms up, with one dropping a brief spin-up tornado in Estill County.
And just a few days later, winter decided to show up starting in the early hours of January the 6th. A potent low-pressure system developed over the deep south, worked its way through the Appalachian Mountains during the day, and moved into the northeast by Thursday night. On its way through our region, heavy snow fell, sometimes at up to 1 inch per hour rates, leaving up to 9 inches in some spots. Even though it was a dry snow, the warm weather of the previous few weeks caused it to be slushy on the roads, causing multiple crashes.
On the 16th day of the first month of the year, a complex winter storm rolled into the region, bringing a mess with it. It started with rain, freezing rain, and sleet before switching over to a heavy snow. A particularly intense band set up near Interstate 75 and dropped up to 9 inches in spots, leaving many of our western neighbors in the dark due to down power lines.
We also have one honorable mention to this list, even though it didn't happen during the winter forecast time frame. In the overnight hours between Friday, March 11th and Saturday, March the 12th, close to or more than 6 inches of snow fell in parts of the region, marking the last major snowfall of the season. Road crews were happy to hear that after using a lot of salt and chemicals to keep the roads clear in the previous 3 months. Now, Brandon, that was my birthday, and I was wishing for it the entire season, and Mother Nature decided to deliver.
Coming from Alabama, I know you love snow.
Yeah, exactly. But still to come, the moment you've all been waiting for, our brand new 2022-2023 winter weather outlook.
You have made it this far, and now it is time. We are ready to release our brand new winter weather outlook for the 2022-2023 season.
Now remember, forecasts are generally only accurate between 3 and 5 days out, and sometimes not even then. Weather can change a lot in just the span of a week. This forecast covers 3 months.
That's exactly right. Meteorologist Cameron Aaron gets us started with a recap of the difference between winter weather alerts.
Brandon, thank you. As we get closer to the winter season, you may start to see different winter weather alerts. But what do those actually mean? Let's take a look at the graphics and show you. This is a winter storm watch. Now, these are issued about 48 hours in advance of a winter storm, and the winter storm is possible. We could see 4 or possibly more than 4 inches of snow over a 12-hour time period. Now, a winter weather advisory a little bit closer. The storm is approaching within 24 hours of the event. These usually are posted by the National Weather Service. And again, we could see anywhere from 1 to 4 inches of snow over a 12-hour period. And a winter storm warning that is pretty similar to an advisory, but the winter storm amount is a little bit greater. We could see 4 or possibly more than 4 inches of snow in a 12-hour period. So let's take a look at what we had last winter. Now for December, we just talked about it, one of the warmest on record here in eastern Kentucky. We should be in the upper 30s and lower 40s, but last December we had temperatures in the lower 50s across the region. Now let's talk about what happened last winter. In terms of temperature, we just talked about it. December was one of the warmest on record for our region. We should be in the upper 30s and lower 40s, but last December temperatures were well above average in the lower 50s. Now in January, we should be in the middle 30s, slightly below average temperatures in the lower 30s across the region, and into your February. In terms of temps, upper 30s, lower 40s, right around average. We topped out in the lower 40s last February. Now in terms of rainfall, we were well above average for all 3 months last winter. We should be around 2.5 inches in December, just below 4 inches in January, and just above 4 inches in February. Now in terms of snowfall, well below average in December. We just talked about it, one of the warmest on record, so we only had a trace of snowfall last winter in December, but check out January. We should be around 7.5 inches, almost double that for January, and well below average once again for snowfall in February. Now let's go over to meteorologist Evan Hatter. He has a look at NOAA's winter weather outlook.
Thanks, Cameron. Now, one of the many things that we look at when we make our forecast is also the opinion of the experts, the folks at the Climate Prediction Center, part of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. They come out with forecasts throughout the entire year, going out as far as an entire year. But for the months of December, January, and February, their forecast, issued just recently, says we've got a 40 to 50% chance of things being a little wetter than normal throughout the region. And that makes sense with the pattern that we're in. It doesn't mean it necessarily will be. It means the pattern favors wetter than normal conditions through the next 3 months. Temperature-wise, well, the latest outlook also suggests that we've got a 33 to 40% chance of seeing milder than average conditions throughout the Ohio Valley through the next 3 months or so, with a lot of the cold bottled up across the northern tier of states. Why is that? Well, just like last year, this year we are in a La Nina pattern. Now, what is La Nina? Well, it all goes back to the Pacific Ocean. Normally, trade winds, which blow east to west in a normal time frame, push warm surface waters towards the continent of Asia. However, in certain years, like this year and even last year, those trade winds are stronger than usual, pushing all that water toward Asia, meaning cooler water from the bottom of the Pacific Ocean is able to come up to the surface just to the east of South America. And that affects weather not just here in the United States, but globally. But in our region, our typical wintertime pattern during a La Nina says we'll be wetter than normal, with the polar jet situated to our north. The question then becomes, during the wintertime time frame, will we see that jet stream push further to the south? Will the phasing that you see with the polar jet and the Pacific jet come a little further east? Or will we see that dry and warm influence from further onto the south and the equator start to move north and interact with our wet pattern? Well, here's what we think is going to happen, and here's Brandon.
Thanks, Evan. We've got all the scientific things that we look at for the forecast out of the way. Now, what do we expect? So this year, similar to last year, above average temperatures in December, below in January, and above again in February. Okay, across the board, precip, all above. Even just the rain chances, we think we're going to expand past our averages for all 3 months there, as we have several years in the past. Now, for snowfall, below in December, above in January, and below in February. So very similar to last year. Here's the map you've all been waiting for this entire special. Snowfall outlook from first flake to last flake. And we've already had some of our first flakes that didn't amount to much. Already a couple of traces even before December started at the National Weather Service office at Jackson. So all the counties in blue, which includes Jackson, Hazard, Harlan, City of Harlan, all the way up to Moorhead and back over toward Plankville, Louisa. A general 6 to 12 inches, maybe some locally higher amounts. That's what that plus stands for. In the highest elevations down near the Kentucky-Virginia borders, those mountainous regions, a general 15 to 20 inches with some more localized higher amounts in that part. Remember, this is first flake to last flake. This takes us all the way through the end of February. And then a general 4 to 8 inches possible with some locally higher amounts toward I-75 into southeast Kentucky and East Tennessee and over toward, again, Lake Cumberland. So this is just a forecast. And as we said earlier, forecasts sometimes don't pan out, especially this far in advance. And there you have it. That is our thoughts as the First Alert Weather Team. Evan, what are your final thoughts on that forecast?
Well, Brandon, I think it'll just be interesting to see how the polar and Pacific jets phase throughout the year. And just because typically during a La Nina we do have warmer and wetter conditions, doesn't mean we can't get those big Arctic outbreaks where the jet stream really takes a dip throughout the eastern third of the nation. Right. So it's I'll be interesting to see if we overachieve on those snow totals, kind of like what we did last year, even seeing snow into the middle of March.
Exactly. So it is a wait and see at this point. So we appreciate it if you wait and see with us. And again, long range forecasting, not always the best. Take it easy. We'll see you next time.